Hello YouTube, and we are coming to you live from inside our latest project and of course our latest build series. Now I'll tell you a little bit about this build series, but first things first, once you've watched this full build series and seen all the work that goes in and out of this vehicle is going to be up for sale. So you'll be able to see exactly how it's built every step of the way and be reassured that this van is going to be an awesome little cool micro camper and is going up for sale in the final video of this build series. So a bit about the van. This van is a Citroen Dispatch 2013, 120,000 miles on the clock, and it arrived with us by fate really. A customer from New Zealand came over to have this van done so they could travel around England, and then they was going to sell the van on and fly back to New Zealand. They then received some news from home and they had to fly home pretty sharpish, so we ended up just buying the van off them, and we're going to convert it exactly how they wanted it converting, so we can at least send some photographs through so they can see their vision become a reality even if they didn't get to actually travel in the van themselves. So let's get on with the first video. So this is part one. In part one we are going to be doing our first fix electrics. So to do that we do need to strip out all of the ply lining so we can run our cables behind it all, run all our cables for all the electrics in this van. Now this is only a micro camper, so there's not going to be a huge amount of electricals going in here, but we'll get that all finished up today. So we need to strip out all the ply and get all these cables ran in trunking to where they need to be and get that ready to start rebuilding in the next episode. First things first, before we get on with any of the wiring, I need a cable entry gland so we can get the solar cables put in. So we've done this, which is a basic design. Sorry for my crude videoing method here, but this is basically going to be a double cable entry gland, and then all we need to do is buy the connectors that are going to slot into the fronts of those two holes there. With that designed, we'll now send it over to the 3D printer, which is just heating up now. That's going to print that off. We are going to leave that printing now while we head back through the workshop and back out to the van and get all of these boards stripped out, ready for running these cables through. So the van is now fully stripped, everything is bare and we can start running these cables. Now we have also stripped the floor out, although I never ever run any cables under the floor because this makes them completely inaccessible should you need to in the future once you've built the van out. But it's always important to strip the floor out for a few reasons. One is you never know what's lurking underneath there. You need to make sure that floor is up so you can treat. This van is very good. You know, you've got a few tiny little spots of rust where water's collected in the corner, so we might as well treat those, even though the majority of the van, other than the mess, is very clean and tidy. But you also are going to have these, which are tie down points, and this is going to leave holes in your floor, so whatever you put over the top of them, you're going to have a hole in it and that'll wear through. So you do need to put a new floor down in most cases. Plus that floor had seen better days, it did need replacing anyway, so we are going to be replacing that floor. But now we've got this up, we can clean this out and treat any tiny spots of rust in this. But in your van there could be much worse things lurking under there, and if you're going to build a van you need to build it on a good foundation. There's no point putting thousands of pounds into the back of a van to find that you've just let the floor rot underneath it. So always take the floor up and make sure that's done first. So we're going to clean this floor out, delve through all this, work out what the previous owner did for a living. I'm guessing plumber, because we've got lots of plumbing fittings. A couple of olives there, some Stanley blades there. So we'll get all this cleaned out and then we can start running the cables in. And now we've got a prime example of why we've done this step. So as I am blowing the air on here, you can see there may be some water ingress if the seal had gone over time a long time ago, because it's not happening now, but it's taking the paint off and revealing rust. So now we've found a problem that we need to address. So we need to take that apart and get all that rust treated, sorted out, and make sure that it's absolutely bang on before we go building a camper van on top of it. So as you can see, we've took out this plate and also removed all the lock mechanisms so we can get in to see this problem. Now we've got two weapons of choice at this point. We've either got a drill with a wheel or a grinder with a flappy disc. That's great for big flat areas, but I think this is going to be the better choice to be able to get into all these little nooks and crannies and, you know, and get everything cleaned up best we can. So the first thing we need to do is remove all of this surface rust. So now once you've got yourself to this point, you need to treat any last little tiny bits of rust. We've found that Cure Rust from Hammerite does this absolutely perfectly. Top tip when using this, never ever ever get your brush and dip it back in the bottle, because you're going to have bits of rust on your brush. They're going to go in there, they're going to cause a chemical reaction and make the rest of the bottle useless. So always decant it into something and just use what you use. And if you need more, you can always put more in. If you end up with any left over, throw it away. So just paint that onto all the areas where there is any sort of sign of any sort of rust, and that will convert that rust and treat it and give you a usable surface in just 15 minutes. Once you've treated the paint, all you're going to need to do is cover that back up so it doesn't rust again. If this is an area where you're going to see it, then obviously you're going to need to colour code it, but we're putting a floor over this and this rubber trim is going to cover this edge, so that really doesn't matter. Now, next step is we're going to start installing all these cables. To do that, we're going to need a really cool little cheap Chinese tool. I'll take you inside and show you that. So you're going to need to install conduit. Now sometimes you are going to have to put this through metal parts of your van, and that's where these little bad boys come into action. I do recommend doing a little bit of a pilot hole with a small drill bit first just to get these things going, but once they've got past that first point, they will chew through metal like there is no tomorrow. And it's so easy just to go down to the desired thickness, and if you look, that's pushing that open, so therefore that widest one is going to be the perfect fit for the conduit to go through. Let's get to some drilling. So next thing you need to do is work out exactly where all your conduit and all your cables need to go. Now there are some fantastic videos online for actually working out your electrical plan. We're not going to go into too much detail on that today, but what I found helped it go into my head was to get a detailed schematic electrical drawing from Google and then use that to draw your own plan. I found that actually drawing it myself actually helped the information go into my head, and that really worked. For this van, it's going to be very basic electrics. We need to get cabling up here into the roof, from down here under the bed, where the bed's going, where the batteries are going, but also we need a switch cable for the lighting, which is going to be going on the opposite wall, so that means we also need a cable that runs all the way right down here. So we need a cable to go from the battery compartment up this wall all the way down to wherever the switch is going, and then a secondary cable that's going to run back up into the middle of the roof for the light. So that's one thing. If you remember that if you're wanting to put a light in, you need to be able to run from your battery, where your battery and your fuse box is going to go, to the switch and then back to the light again. Then we need to work out where our fridge is going. So again, we need to go from where the battery is and the fuse board and safely get to wherever the fridge is going. And the same with any other things that you put in, such as USB charging points and that type of stuff. So without further ado, let's get some drilling done and get all the conduit and cable fed in. So it's a perfect example of why you should always double check before you start, because this hole that we found earlier that was already there leads straight down here to this massive hole here, and that is within our bed still, so that means no drilling required for this side of the van, which is helpful. So now that reaches to there, this is going to be where our light comes out, so we need another piece of conduit to come round. Again, we're going to be able to follow that to there, but this time we want the switch to be in this panel here, so we are going to have to drill through the side of there to bring the cable out there. Let's have a look. 3D printers are amazing. There we go. Now, just by buying a cheap bag of bulkhead connectors, we've got a massively reduced price solar gland. So as you can see, we've now got all of our cables coming out here in their conduits. So this one here is coming through here, and this is going to come out to the back doors, and that's going to make a USB or a 12-volt socket for the back for if you're wanting to charge your phone up, maybe blow up an airbed or a paddleboard. That's going to give us that option at the back doors. Then going back up here into here, obviously this needs clipping up, and this then runs all the way over and then comes down to here, which is going to be our switch panel, and also probably have a USB on there as well, and then all the way down to the bottom here. And again, we'll have a USB on the edge of the bed here, which means you can also do the same, charge your phone up while you sat outside the van. So that all goes there. Now we do need, the fridge is going to be going here, and also there's going to be a 12-volt feed for the tap, but we don't need to run that into anything just yet because the battery compartment is going to be inside the bed here, and that's also going to run straight into the side of the kitchen there. So that can go in at a later date rather than just having a piece of cable just sat on the floor there and getting lost. So all we need to do now is build up our solar entry gland and run our solar cables from the roof into here, down, and then bring them out into the battery compartment also. So getting on with the final job that we're going to do is to bring these solar cables down through the roof. Now here there is quite a large area on the roof, so we're going to try and bring them straight down into this channel, which means we can then run them all the way down here, which is going to bring them out at the bottom here and straight into our electrical cupboard. We just need to make sure that we've got enough space on the roof to be able to get that, because it is quite far back on the roof, to make sure we can get the cable out and spun back round to go down to the solar panel when we start installing those things during the second fix process. Once we've measured that up on the roof, we can get the holes drilled, and then using a grommet to make sure it doesn't chafe on the metal, we're going to bring those cables down through the roof into the conduit and into that electrical area. Let's get the tape measure out, check we can actually fit it where we want it, and get it all drilled, sikaflexed onto the roof and installed. So all we've done is made a slight mark just so we know where we're going. We've checked that measurement on the inside, drilled and put in the 2 grommets, ran the cables through, and now we've degreased this area with thinners to make sure we get a good adhesion. I'm going to get Sikaflex, bond that down and apply weight to it just to make sure it doesn't move until that Sikaflex has completely gone off. And we've made sure we've left plenty of cable on there, so no matter where we put the solar panel, we know we're going to be able to reach it depending on what panel we purchase. But at least now all the cables will be in, and all we need to do now is get that stuck down and then run the cables down the inside of the van. So now with the solar gland on and sealed and the wires all run in, I'll show you what it looks like from the inside. I don't know if you can see there, that's where it comes through the roof. We've got conduit coming down, and then that is going to follow all the way down here and then comes out there, and we've left plenty of slack on that, look, to make sure we can get to wherever we end up positioning the MPPT around here. Now that is the first fix finished now. So when you do your first fix and all of these first steps of building a van, these first few steps are a little bit underwhelming and it doesn't feel like you're getting anywhere, but you really need to stick with it, because as I say, this van probably looks further back than when we started because we've ripped all the boards out. It looks completely bare now. But these first steps can take a bit of time, and don't get too disheartened if you feel like you're not getting anywhere fast at the beginning. It's towards the end of the van build that everything starts to fall into place really quickly. So just make sure you remember that when you're getting really stuck into the first bits of doing your van. Stick with it, it's going to be amazing. Next episode we're going to be doing the controversial subject of insulation. Vapor barrier, no vapor barrier. Tune in next time to see. Remember, we release videos every single Tuesday at 8 PM and go live every Thursday at 8 PM. So until then, see you next Tuesday.